What if the most powerful moment in your campaign was something your players never saw? What if the most memorable NPC never spoke a single word? And what if your world felt more real, more lived in, not because of what you told them, but because of what you left out? Welcome to Negative Space Storytelling. And no, it's not about maps or battle positioning. It's about building meaning through absence, through implication, through silence. And if you're a dungeon master, this might be one of the most underused tools in your creative arsenal. Let's get into it. So what is negative space storytelling? It's a technique most often discussed in visual art, where the shapes around the subject define it just as much as the subject itself. In storytelling, that translates to what's not said becomes just as important as what is. The silence, the unanswered question, the missing page, the ancient ruin that no one will talk about, the statue with the face broken off, the king's name that's been erased from every scroll. These are the shadows your players' imaginations will live in, and that's where the real magic will happen. Why does this work especially in ttrpgs? Because imagination fills in gaps more vividly than any lore dump ever could. And when you create those gaps intentionally, your players become co-authors of your world. They start asking, what happened here? Why would they bury this? Who are they hiding from? And suddenly they're leaning in. They're paying attention. They're invested. Negative space storytelling also creates tension, not with explosions or monsters, but with what's missing. Think about horror movies, the scariest scenes, the ones where you don't see the thing. That tension, that silence, that's narrative negative space. Apply that to D&D, and now the haunted house isn't scary because of a ghost stat block. It's scary because the servants' quarters are sealed off, and no one will say why. Here's the part that might feel weird. This technique means saying less. And if you're used to being a lore dumping DM, that can be hard. But think of it this way. When you give players a blank space, they'll often fill it with something better than you could have ever written. It's not about being vague for the sake of vagueness. It's about trusting your players to explore, assume, interpret, and imagine. In fact, the more specific you get about what's missing, the stronger this effect becomes. Let's take a look at non-D&D examples for a second. In Dark Souls, entire civilizations and gods are hinted at through broken statues, item descriptions, and eerie silence. In Shadow of the Colossus, you never get a full explanation of the world. Only ruins, whispers, and implications. In the movie Arrival, the alien language is only half understood, and that's the point. The tension leaves in interpretation. These stories thrive because they don't give you every answer. They let you discover the meaning or make it up on your own. And tabletop RPGs, they're the perfect place to let players do exactly that. So far we've talked about what negative space storytelling is, using implication, silence, and what's left unsaid to create deeper, more immersive campaigns. Now let's talk about how to actually use it at the table, not just in theory, but in your next session. And let's build some gaps, and let's let your players fall into them. Whew, a little winded. It's warm today. 1. World building with gaps. Don't write every detail of your world. Write around the details. Instead of saying this king ruled for 200 years, say, no one agrees on how long he ruled. One historian says 80 years. One claims he's still alive. Instead of giving a timeline of the empire's fall, describe 3 ruins, each showing different iconography, different gods, different values, and never tell the players which came first. In other words, scatter puzzle pieces, but leave a few missing from the box. Your players will spend hours trying to complete the picture, and that's exactly what you want. 2. Dungeon rooms that whisper. Let's talk about dungeons. Negative space storytelling here means not filling every room with monsters or loot. Instead, use empty space with loaded meaning. An example of this would be a throne room with 2 thrones, but only one is intact. a bloodstain that leads away from the trap, a broken statue that's head shattered, but someone tried to carefully reassemble the hands. Don't explain these things, just let them exist. Let the players argue, theorize, and read too much into it. That's engagement. That's immersion. That's ownership of the story. And 3, your NPCs don't need to give lore dumps. In fact, it's more interesting when they don't. Let them hesitate, change the subject, contradict each other, whisper a name, and then refuse to say more. Maybe the villagers all believe a different version of what happened in the old keep. Maybe one of them just says, well, that place is better if we don't talk about it. That silence, that refusal, that absence of info, that's storytelling. We've just created a hole your players will want to dig into. 4, character backstories with shadows. This one's for both DMs and players. Don't define everything about your character's past. Leave room for discovery and misinterpretation. If you're a DM, give your villain a motive. No one knows, but everyone thinks that they do. If you're a player, build a character who won't explain why they hate the gods, but gets visibly tense every time a cleric speaks. The silence is the story. And over time, that negative space can be filled in collaboratively, piece by piece, shaped by in-game events, not backstory essays. 5, let the players fill it in. Here's the secret. Players love filling in blanks. Let them. If someone theorizes that the ruined keep was destroyed by a jealous dragon lover, smile, nod, say nothing. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Maybe it becomes true because now they're emotionally invested. This is where negative space becomes an active tool, not just a passive one. You let their imagination do the heavy lifting, and you adapt to your world around their curiosity. And a bonus tip, don't overdo it. Don't make everything vague. Too much negative space and your game stops feeling intentional. It starts feeling underprepared. The trick is balance. Deliver enough solid information that players feel grounded. Then sprinkle in absence, mystery, contradiction, silence, where it enhances the tone. If your campaign is a painting, don't forget the shadows, but make sure there's still a subject in the center of it. In the end, negative space storytelling is about trusting your players. Trusting that if you leave something out, they'll lean in. If you whisper, they'll lean closer. And if you show them a world with holes in it, they'll pick up the threads and start weaving their own version of the truth. So don't just write what happened, write what didn't, and let the silence echo. Thanks for watching. If this gave you ideas for your next campaign or next session, hit that like button, subscribe for more tools to sharpen your DM storytelling, and let me know what you think down in the comments. What's something your players obsessed over that you never explained? Anyway, until next time, guys, this is James from the Dungeon Puffin. Later. You're all wondering where I am, in the middle of the woods, walking on a hill right now. So that's why I'm having a hard time looking at the camera and talking at the same time. But it's a lot of fun. Go outside, see some trees, touch some grass, see some squirrels. Love you guys.